ladies and gentlemen, I think it's around about 7:30 this evening, and we said we would start at 7:30. So a very, very warm welcome to those who've joined us, and we'll welcome others if they come a bit later. Tug is still very kindly letting people in the room as we go on. So first of all, welcome to this evening, which is titled "Pioneering Parishes: Extending the Church's Reach into Communities," and we're delighted that Reverend Greg Bakker is with us this evening, who's a co-founder of Pioneering Parishes. Greg, thank you for joining us this evening, and to all of you, it'd be lovely to have you. The process this evening, we tend to, in a moment, I'll shut up, you'll be pleased to know, and Greg will lead us through this evening. But there will be an opportunity during the time this evening for a 5-10 minute break, get a quick cup of coffee and pop the loo during there. And the other thing is we do try to keep ourselves to the time, and we say we finish at 9 o'clock, so we try to do that. But I'm sure we're going for a really interesting evening this evening with Greg, and so I'll be quiet now and let's be still for a moment as we pray for the night. Almighty and everlasting God, you have given us your servants grace by the confession of a true faith, to acknowledge the glory of the eternal Trinity, and in the power of the divine majesty to worship the unity. Keep us steadfast in this faith, that we may evermore be defended from all adversities. Through Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord, who is alive and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. If you've got any questions on technical issues this evening, then Tug at the top there, John Tug Wilson, he is just the gentleman to help us out. So if you've got any problems, do pop a little thing into the chat box, and Tug will sort things out to the best of his ability, which is excellent. And we've also Elizabeth Marshall there, and part of our group, as is Alistair Cutting, Bishop Alistair Cutting, and Foreman also part of our group. So quite a few of us here this evening, and there we are. So Greg, I'll be quiet, and thank you very much indeed for being with us this evening, and we are in your hands. Bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to spend time with you and to share about pioneering parishes, and in particular interested about sharing what we're doing with something that's emerging recently, as that we're beginning to work with whole deaneries who in their chapters and leadership teams have decided that they want to make a journey together and explore what it would mean to be a pioneering deanery together. So tonight, just to say that there will be some breakout conversations. There'll be opportunities to explore, well, the nature of pioneering, how we might understand that. We'll have some examples of a pioneer who works with us in this project, and an opportunity to hear a little bit about the type of work that we do and the content that we share with congregations, deaneries, and in training of curates and training incumbents. So could I just start off with this statement before we go to breakout groups, is that one of the things I really hope you'll come away with tonight is the idea that pioneering parishes is for congregations who have a good heart, but they're weary and nearing exhaustion. It's for congregations wondering out loud how they can keep going with fewer resources and ever-mounting challenges. And it's for congregations who feel a sense of loss, who may even need to mourn before it's even possible to move forward. And so Pioneering Parishes is a compassionate and hopeful response to the circumstances of many of our parish churches and deaneries up and down this land. And for me, Pioneering Parishes is rooted in this conviction that God has more for us as communities of faith. And in many pioneering parishes, one of the key stories, one of the narratives that goes over and over and over and is rehearsed and celebrated is the story of Abraham and Sarah. And Abraham and Sarah, and the reason particularly, I personally love this story. It's one of my favorite passages in the scriptures. Is that is that we're told that well, Abraham is at least 75 years old, and so he's in a place of comfort and ease. He's accumulated so much, and then God comes to Abraham and says, "Hey, um, I've got something to show you, but but you can't see it from where you're standing." And what God does with Abraham and Sarah and their what will emerge as their clan, their tribe, is that God takes them on a journey. And I love that Abraham and Sarah, they're not perfect people. They make disastrous choices. And yet one of the things that really stands out is that they're still willing to journey with God because they somehow have come to that place of trust that God has something more for them, that God wants to show them something more. And I think this is true for God's intentions for our parish church communities and for our deaneries. It's the idea that there is something more for us than we currently have now. And as a parish priest for over 30 years, can I tell you, one of the most exhilarating things to experience is to look out in over congregations and communities and realize that they are somehow more alive than when you first arrived. And I just so Pioneering Parishes is all about that. Is come and explore, come and discover what God has for us. I love that Abraham and Sarah, they're 75 at least, and God's not finished with them. There's something else that God wants for them, and I truly believe this is for our congregations and deaneries as well. So, can we turn now to the ever tricky um, bit of the title, Pioneering Parishes? Um, and we were quite intentional about picking this term. And one of the reasons we picked this term was because Church House Publishing liked it. And they thought that pioneer and parishes, they were often seen as being hostile rivals. Um, and my colleague and I, Tina, we didn't see it that way. Our experience was not either. So, what I'd like for us to do is in breakout groups for let's say 12 minutes. If you could have a think in your breakout group, um, who do you think of as a pioneer, or somebody who's doing pioneering things? It doesn't have to be a religious person. It could be somebody right in your local community that you're of whom you've observed. Um, and the second question is around Jesus. And in Hebrews chapter 12, Jesus is referred to as the pioneer of our faith. And sometimes he's described as the author of our faith. But one of the translations is that Jesus is the pioneer. He's the one that opens the way for us. So thinking about that particular verse, what qualities does Jesus show us in his pioneer work? What do we see in him that indicates that pioneering spirit is at play in who he is and what he does? Now, near the end of the breakout time, you'll need what I invite you to do is in your group is to decide what you're going to share. So if we could just say, I'm not sure how many breakout groups we'll have, but if you could share one or two things and very briefly about these two questions. Um, and one of the really helpful things in groups always is that listen for somebody else. So can we invite you not to share share with the wider group something that you yourself said, but rather actually it was something that somebody else had said that you thought was interesting and worthwhile passing on to the remaining group. And then we'll have when you come back, we'll have a good minute to report back your contributions to the wider group. I hope you all enjoyed your conversation on these fairly broad questions. And again, if we could be really succinct in our sharing, and so hopefully you've identified a couple of points that you would like to share with all the other groups. Are we sure everybody's back? Because it says all breakout rooms will close in 31 seconds.
They're all back now.
They're all back. Okay. Shall we start with room 5, which is Jeffrey and Jim and Richard, double Richard, and Stuart?
I think that was us.
Okay, great.
I'm not sure why we start at number 5. It doesn't sound terribly logical, but never mind.
There's nothing logical in the Church of England.
1 is boring. Everybody starts at 1.
They do, and I got called out several times, and I just stopped calling on number 1 first time.
So I think we agreed that our 2 points to bring back were 1 on each question that you posed, and in terms of what we think of as a pioneer, certainly in the church context, is taking the gospel into places where conventional church is not reaching, I think is the way we would put that. And in terms of what qualities does Jesus bring to this, we thought that he starts where people are.
Great. Really good insights, and of course the we might have pioneering activity like that, but those are some qualities that actually transform parish churches too when they inhabit that kind of space. We're going out to looking outward and also seeking to be able to engage people where they are. Thank you, Jeffrey. Shall we go to group 4? We have Jeff and Heather, Howard, Jeremy, and Martin.
Okay, we only had 4 of those actually in the group.
Okay.
It's a slight challenge because both Jeff and myself have been working on one of the newest parishes in the Church of England, at Deepcut, which is very much a pioneering activity, building a church for a small village which is about to have 1,800 houses added to it. And we have an exemplar pioneer mission minister there who started off as a youth worker, became ordained, and is reaching out. And the key thing there is really, how do you move the kingdom forward? You need somebody who finds the work exciting, is willing to work on it, and can really reach out into the community, which he has been doing. We're currently 9 years into a 13-year program to establish the parish. But Jeremy also highlighted that you've got the challenge of reaching out into bits of the community that are really disadvantaged and really unchurched. And that's happening across all those activities, which is kind of what Jesus did by moving out into different areas. You've got to have the confidence to go and do that. And we're very pleased to have an excellent team that are doing that in a new parish.
Great. Thank you, Howard. And it's so I have trained quite a few curates over the years. 4 of my 6 curates have been pioneers, and one of the things I realize is just what you said, is they love it, they cannot help themselves. It's in their DNA to move towards unconnected people, so that they can find a way of connecting with church. Thank you so much. Next group, Alistair, Anne, Lee, Michael, and Patricia.
We didn't get as far as sorting out who was going to report back, which is a lot of help, wasn't it? We got quite sort of caught up with in our conversations. And Lee, can you just remind us what your starting point was?
I think Michael actually started us off with the pioneering, being a model from kind of the army, kind of pioneer going forward and leading forth, and then kind of coming back almost having done a recce to report back. And that was one kind of model of pioneering. And I think that there was another voice, Anne, was talking about actually how pioneering doesn't have to look very shiny. It can be in the ordinary. And in those places where, again, the disconnections happen, where people are at. I think I was speaking around, pioneering. I think Michael, you was talking about not having numbers. Numbers in pioneering wasn't as important as the pioneering itself. I think Patricia, who had to have a microphone turned off, put in the chat for us helpfully. That's actually a hands-on thing. You might get your hands dirty whilst doing it. I think that was the general gist.
Yeah, so often there is the significance of the kind of the process and relationship, rather than the numbers, and definitely like the idea of pioneers go out, and I know in my own experience is that the pioneers created the space for the church to follow in behind them, to be able to connect with new or unconnected people. And that was down to a work of a group of pioneers, and yes, so love that idea of they're out there creating a way forward. Thank you. And let's see, was that we're going to go to Douglas, Elizabeth, Lindy, Lynn, and Philip.
We didn't decide on anybody in particular. Go for it, Elizabeth.
No, you go.
We talked about courage, having the courage to do it in the first place, and not be discouraged by if you fail, because there isn't really a failure. Just do something else or try again.
Yes.
So it's courage and keeping and commitment, keep going, is what we were talking about. And I think we agreed that those were the qualities shown by Jesus.
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
So, in Pioneering Parishes, when we do our training, particularly with with curates, one of the things that we do talk and explore is that whole idea is that this does take courage, and it is sometimes uncomfortable, and feels risky, particularly when we've been trained to, I think the Church of England likes successes, and we're not so we're not so comfortable at well, this looks pretty good and we have all the ducks that we have lined up. We've done as much as we can. We're going to go for it. Most of the time we want something that's safe, and yeah, so it takes courage just to try. Thank you so much. And our last group.
There is an other point. Might jump in. We like the quote from Rachel Treweet to say that we should know in the parish what is happening elsewhere. And I mean, I was saying, for instance, that during Sunday morning in East London, there's a huge number of young children who are out playing football with their parents. So we do need to know what is happening where the church is not, I think is the gist of Rachel's quote.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, so a lot of the pioneering spirit is about noticing. It's paying attention, being aware of what's going on around us. Thank you. So last group, Carol and Peter and Richard.
Sorry, try to get the mic unmuted. There were we really thought that pioneering some things was definitely doing something new, but we're also concerned that it's quite often misinterpreted by the church congregation or the parish as to not wanting a pioneering minister. Definitely believe that it is an outward movement. It's not something to happen inside the church. It's definitely an outward movement, as you said. And we had the example of a parish moment, which is sort of shifting its centre of gravity from the church out into the school, towards the school and the community. So it was definitely something new. Didn't have to be something which had to be done before elsewhere, but it's definitely something new in your local context. And then looking at Jesus and what qualities does he have? Well, I think it was definitely the sort of phrases we had were come and see, as Jesus' sort of invitation to people, and then the go and tell to send them back out again. So that's really what we came up with.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, that is one of the challenges of pioneering, isn't it? Sometimes the church congregations want the pioneers to bring people back into the church, to the parish church, and sometimes that does happen, but more often than not, it's actually about well, we're going to meet people where they are, and we will shape something that helps them to be able to engage with and be nurtured by the Christian faith. So pioneering is in a sense is a way of expanding reach in terms of spiritual care and nurture and discipleship across a whole parish. Thank you so much, and some really helpful, insightful reflections. You know, often people will get somebody, one of the groups said, you know, it doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to be, you know, shiny. When I was first introduced to pioneering about 15 years ago, that was the impression. It was going to be shiny, and I'd like to share with you a story of a pioneer whose name is Allie, and Allie is a pioneer. She's a lay pioneer on the Isle of Wight in the parish of Brystone. It's on the far west side of the parish. And Allie was an active church member. She was a member of the parish council, and she often sat in her church council meetings thinking, there must be more than this. There must be more than rotas. And then lockdown hit, and she was absolutely relieved. And she was just glad to be able to stop. And then when lockdown lifted, she was in another parish church council meeting, and they were talking about the state of the churchyard at Brystone, and it was enormously overgrown. And Allie is a gardener. She has a gardening business, landscape business, and she just said, without really thinking, well, I'll take care of it. And that's what she told her colleagues. So she organized an event in the churchyard, and she invited people in the parish to come and help. She knew lots of people in the village, because she was the one that delivered the parish church magazine to a lot of the houses in the village. Many of the people wouldn't have been connected with the church or attending church services, and so on her first event, she had 4 men come, and they brought their power tools, and they started an amazing work, and they continued, and they cleared away so much of the churchyard. And as they worked, they realized that there was a space in the churchyard that actually hadn't been used. Okay. And So they decided that they would, as a community, begin to create a space for quiet reflection. One of the amazing things about this village is that the path through the village goes right through the church's churchyard. So if you're going to the shop, you have to pass through the churchyard to get to the shop. And Alice, with this kind of pioneer spirit, saw, well, this is an opportunity. And so they designed this space for reflection and peacefulness, and they called it the Olive Garden. Ali is also an amateur glassmaker, and so she gathered people into a glassmaking course, and she in her gardening business there was a one of her clients had this table, this glass table, which she said was never used, and she'd never seen it used in the 5 years that she'd been working on in this garden, and she just felt the prompt from God to say, ask for that that table, and the client gave it to her, and it became the base for this mosaic, the Tree of Life mosaic. And so Ali, again, a gatherer of people, just simply taught people how to do the glass, and they as a community, a group of people, designed this together. And again, the people participating largely were not church attenders. They were on the margins of the church, and in the end, they dedicated this mosaic at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in the garden space. It was a wonderful celebration of community coming together, and the pride of people who had participated and being included in a project like this. One of the interesting things that has happened is that while Ali was doing the gardening at the churchyard and the mosaic club and several other kind of activities, is that she was just showing up in the space. She was just being present, and people started sharing their stories. They started sharing their lives, and the conversations inevitably would turn to faith. And one of the things that quite naturally happened was that a new worshiping community emerged in this, and it was held right in the churchyard. And because the Isle of Wight is so focused on environmental kind of issues and creation care, the worship community took on, by agreement with those who are participating, kind of a Celtic Christian feel about it. And so people are becoming Christians. People are beginning to express Christian faith, and are participating in acts of Christian worship. Most of these people still will not come to Sunday church, but what has happened is that the church has extended to connect with people who were previously unconnected. And one of the most exciting things that has happened is that that idea of Celtic worship has now expanded to the neighboring village. So Ali has just been at the heart of that. No big plan, just step by step, following where she thought God was leading, and trying something and seeing what would happen. It's interesting, the woman that's on the left-hand side, pictured next to Ali, is a poet, and this woman helps Ali with the Celtic services, and she writes the poems of faith that are shared in the local pub. So that's where they meet in this village, is that there's no other meeting place, and the pub said, yeah, sure, come, great, have your gathering here. So Ali works with Pioneering Parishes, and one of the things that would like to ask you to reflect on for if we just take 5 or 6 minutes. Yeah, why don't we take 6 minutes, and then we have a break coming up. Is in your groups, consider, well, what's interesting about Ali's story? What did you notice? What surprised you? And the second question is, what have you learned about the ways that pioneering and parish can be in partnership with one another? So a few thoughts for you to reflect on. And then when we come back, we won't have feedback. It's for your sharing in your groups. And then when we come back, we'll go to our 10-minute break. Great, thank you. So welcome back to from your group conversations. And as promised, we're going to take a 10-minute screen break, and we'll come back at 8:30 for our final bit of the session, and we'll talk a little bit about what does being a pioneering parish or pioneering deanery look like, and how can we make that journey. So in the next few minutes, I want to explore with you some of the basic convictions of the Pioneering Parishes project, and then also explore with you how you might want to have a closer look at, what would this, how would we go back this as a deanery together, if we wanted to investigate more. So a few pictures. I like pictures. So one of the things that we really think about pioneering is that we think it's integral to parish life. That pioneering is not something separate that from the parish church. And in a sense, pioneering in parish is all about cultivating the soil in our communities. I remember my father and mother moved into a new housing estate, and this was about 35 years ago. And the builders built the houses, and then they put lawn turf into each garden, and it looked all beautiful. And the first thing my father did, he was an avid gardener. The first thing he did was he went out and he pulled up the turf in his garden. And he took it all away. And oh my word, were the neighbors upset. And over a series of about 4 months, he dug out all the builder's rubble from the soil. And you wouldn't believe the notes that came through the letter box, and the pounding on the door about how hideous my father was making the neighborhood look. And so he just continued. He just continued to change the soil. And when he was satisfied that the soil was in good shape, he put the turf back on. And it just thrived. And you wouldn't believe that a couple of months later, most of the lawns around the community were dying because simply they couldn't survive in the builder's rubble that had really blemished the soil from being productive. And that's what we think parish church and pioneering is all about. It's about cultivating soil, spiritual soil, for people to be able to discover and experience something of God's goodness and love for them. So we think that pioneering is integral, because pioneering is about parochial congregations moving to the edge. It's about seeking to engage with a wider range of unconnected people. And ultimately, parish church and pioneering are about the cure of souls. It's about spiritual care, the spiritual care of whole communities. And we don't want this just to be a theory. We don't want this just to be something that the bishop says to the incumbent when they're handed their license. We want this to be a real, lived out, embodied dynamic within every parish community. So, parochial churches moving to the edges to be able to engage with a wider range of people. And the way we look at this is, we describe this as the mixed ecology. The mixed ecology is about a diversity of approaches. It means that there's a wide range of expressions within a parish and within a deanery. When I was a parish priest, we had a congregation that was attractive. And people were coming to us. But the really staggering thing was that even though we were doing well, there was the realization that the parish was 21,000 people, and only about 120 something were coming on a Sunday. And you think, those people, some people will come to us, but most people won't come to us. And that means that we need to go to them. And it means that we have to have a variety of expressions, of a diversity of approaches to be able to engage that range of unconnected people. We just simply want them to have the opportunity to experience something of God's love, to know that they're held, that they're valuable, that there's meaning, and that God desires for them to experience a sense of aliveness. And in the picture that we use in Pioneering Parishes is this one. It's called the Three Sisters, and in the indigenous farmers in the United States, they planted three crops together. They planted corn and beans and squash, and they did this for a reason, because they realized that corn would give support for another plant, and they planted the beans because they knew that the beans would provide a natural organic fertilizer that provides nitrogen, so it fertilizes the soil, which allows the corn to grow well too. And then they planted squash, and because the squash would provide shade, keeping the soil moist in the long, hot New England weather. And so what we think about in Pioneering Parishes, this is the picture of pioneering and parochial being together in a mixed ecology. And they're meant to be equal. So they're meant to be connected, and they're meant to be distinct. So they're equal in the sense is that they're each playing a part in providing for the ecology, the wider ecology, the health of the soil and fruitfulness. And they're connected, so they're not meant to be separate. So often when I started, pioneers and parish churches just didn't get along. And sometimes that's still the case now, but what we're arguing is that they're meant to work together, and that when they work together, amazing things, amazing blessings for whole communities can happen. And the last is the recognition that each particular form of ministry offers something that is special to the ecology, and it's different from what other forms offer. So that's the image that we want to promote, is one of all forms of ministry being equal, being connected, and we want to celebrate their distinct special contribution. In what we do in Pioneering Parishes is described by Adam Beaumont, who was one of our participants. And he says that every church wants to be more outward looking, and Pioneering Parishes give simple ways to be so. That's our aspiration. We care about the people who are unconnected, and we want those who are already connected to discover afresh the amazing sense of aliveness that comes from being part of what God's doing in our local communities. Simon Davis, who's the area dean of Rugeley in Lichfield Diocese, said this recently to us. He said, "Pioneering Parishes is shaping up to be one of those sliced bread things. How did we manage before?" And this is one of the things. It's like people say, some people talk about how creative this is, and I'm just thinking this is ordinary. This is good pastoral care. That is, it's good spiritual care, which is outwardly focused towards a whole community. So we don't offer an off-the-shelf manual. This isn't a guidebook. This isn't you do A, B, and C, and you'll get results 1, 2, and 3. Rather, Pioneering Parishes is about the process. It's about the adventure with God, which unlocks a sense of being alive in Jesus. What Pioneering Parishes really is good at is helping congregations to have good, honest conversations in the parish church about things that really matter. And some of the things that we focus on are a set of tools. We have a toolbox. And so here are 5 dynamics of what we think a pioneering parish or a pioneering deanery would look like. These are 5 dynamics. What I love about them is they're just principles. They don't tell you how it'll have to look. One of the things that Simon said to me was that one of the reasons we like pioneering parishes is that it's not uniform, that every congregation that participates in this, even though we're doing this as a deanery, every congregation, this will play out differently in those local contexts. And that's great. And that's amazing. So the things that we teach are tools, and we teach tools for congregational spiritual discernment. And we use those tools to have conversations that help us understand and shape the future, to notice what the Spirit is inviting us to do. So if you looked on Instagram, one of the really interesting things is that it's so different than what the church is emphasizing often. The church is often emphasizing belief. And on Instagram, when you look at what the spiritual interest is out there, they're talking about the practice. What happens when Christians engage in practice, intentional practices, and that somehow that will those practices will inform our understanding of belief and actually about the way that we do ministry. So Pioneering Parishes is about using tools to have conversation, to help us discern, to discover what God is inviting us to do. It's a bit like answering the question that God says, I have something to show you, but you can't see it from where you're standing. And so the conversations and the movement are tools for discovering what, in fact, God does have for us. A second thing that the Pioneering Parishes recognizes as a dynamic is that pioneering parishes and pioneering deaneries make decisions based on shared agreed principles rather than individual preferences. And so often in our church communities, decisions are made around the likes and dislikes, the preferences of those who are already connected, those who already belong. And in pioneering parishes, what is more important than likes and dislikes and preference is the sense of aspiration. Pioneering parishes are making decisions based on who do we aspire to be for God and for our local community. So aspiration and raising the bar of aspiration in appropriate steps is really important for us, because it's about It's about the sense of shared understanding of who we are in God. And that understanding will then determine our vision and what we do. So Pioneering Parishes is very much a values-based approach, rather than I've got this grand vision of, we're going to do this, this, and this. No, we look at it the other way around. Is that we come to some kind of agreed, shared understanding about who we are in this parish church or in this deanery, and then we allow who we are to shape what we do. Another dynamic is about shifting our hearts, our attention, our resource towards people who are unconnected. And one of the things that this is really about is Pioneering Parishes supports and helps congregations to listen to those who are on the fringes of their church community, and to be able to respond to the things that we're hearing and seeing. It always amazes me that there are all kinds of people out there that have aspirations, and they even have aspirations about what the parish church should be and doing, and so we want to hear from them and to take into account. It doesn't mean that we do everything that everybody says that we think we should, but it means is that we're really listening carefully to our community, and that we're moving from the protected place of power in the center towards a sense of connection with our wider community in a way that brings so much blessing. So Pioneering Parishes is a do with approach to mission. It's not a do to. So much of what the church does is a do to. We have the answer. We know what's wrong. We know what you need. We're going to do it to you. And Pioneering Parishes is saying, we do things with our community. And the amazing thing is that when we give ourselves away in humility and love and service to our local community, the opportunities to talk about and share something of God's love open right before us. One of the other things that Pioneering Parishes helps congregations and deaneries think about is cultivating a range of different ways of being church and doing church within one parish. We go to other people because they won't come to us. And one of the realities is that even when a parish church is doing well, is that our existing congregations can rarely change fast enough. And that means that often we need to be developing a range of different ways of being and doing church alongside of what's happening in the parish church. Again, this is about, we want to diversify in order to be able to offer a wider sense of spiritual care for a community. And our last one is that we want to actively celebrate and trust in God's abundance. So much of what we hear and experience in our parish churches is a narrative of scarcity. We know there's scarcity, but there's also sometimes a narrative about it. I remember taking over a congregation or a parish church, and they said in their profile and at the interview process was the thing that they told themselves all the time was, we're a poor parish. Well, that was self-limiting, and you know what? They didn't have a lot of money, but the gifts and the talents they had was amazing. And their ability to connect with people that didn't come to church opened up all kinds of other resources, all other sorts of forms of provision, simply because God has an abundance of provision for us. So we actively celebrate and trust in God's abundance. And we teach congregations how to have conversations around scarcity and abundance, how to think about capacity. Have lots of places are being asked to do more, but one of the things that strikes me is that our parish churches aren't having the conversations around capacity. Do we have enough to be able to do this? And if we don't have enough, what is God telling us about that? Or are we just missing something? Does God have something for us and we just can't see it yet? So those are the conversations. Again, Pioneering Parishes isn't a just do this and it'll be all grand. This is really about a conversation. And one of the things I like to say is that change is an inevitable part of life. But what we're offering in terms of this approach is something. It's not due to change, it is due with type of change. It's a participatory change process and conversation. So those are a few thoughts, and so what we offer, deaneries. What I'll just talk about deaneries is the offer is a bespoke offer. Is that we won't come in and tell you what you need to have. What we can say is we can do this. This is what we can offer. If you need something different, we have worked to develop new things to be able to help deaneries have a conversation about what they want to have a conversation about, and in terms of being able to shift their hearts and their energy and their resources towards their wider community. So in some dioceses, that's very easy. We already have bespoke partnerships with 8 dioceses in the Church of England, but we're willing to have conversations with deaneries about ways that we could support you in a conversation. And at the moment, we have four deaneries who are exploring how to be a pioneering deanery. And the first one to launch was Rugeley Deanery in Lichfield. So if you're from Lichfield, great. And there are two other deaneries in Lichfield as well that are doing the same thing.
Great. Yeah.
Any questions? Let me rephrase. What questions do you have?
So if you'd like to put them in the chat, everyone, then we can see them coming up. Got a chat box in front of me.
Who are the other deaneries, Greg?
The other deaneries are Whitchurch and Hodnet.
I think Carol had a question in the chat about accountability.
Yes.
Thank you. I might have missed that. Thank you. That's helpful. Have you seen that, Greg?
I have, yes. So
okay.
when my experience as a parish priest is that I've run parish churches, but I've also run pioneering projects around. And what we do is design a system that allows those projects to be incorporated into the existing system. So whoever is running the projects on the ground, they're responsible for either feeding back to the diocesan safeguarding officer or to the parish safeguarding officer. There's no negotiation about that. That's what they do, and that's what we train for. That's what we instructed for, and it is that. And one of the other things that we did, particularly in our projects, is that every time we had a youth club meeting, for instance, is that the pre-meeting always included some kind of reminder about safeguarding responsibility. Mm-hmm. So some of that is, and here's the other thing about is that often safeguarding is seen as being onerous, and we just changed the narrative, and the narrative is that we want people to be able to be in a safe space, and this is what we do to do our best to provide a space where people are safe, and that shift to that narrative really helps. Most churches want to grow in number. Well, If we want to grow in number, we also have to have an environment where there's a good culture, where we are looking out for those who are vulnerable. One of the interesting things is, like in Exeter Diocese, I think they said something like 60% of the safeguarding concerns that are raised are not about children or young people; they're about older people. So,
okay, thank you, Greg. We've got time for one more question. There's a couple of ones coming up in the chat now. Jeremy's talking about what does success look like, if you can quantify that, and how you know that a pioneering initiative has achieved its goals. Any kind of quick thoughts on that for us?
for me, the success looks like, is there a sense, do we recognize God's grace, God's life, God's love at work in the lives of people? Are they more alive in a way that they weren't before they, or so they've been a church member for a long time? The other thing is that we think we're focused on the objectives. And when I supervise pioneers, I'm not so interested in the objectives. I'm interested in, are people doing the legwork that allows for the cultivation of an environment for fruitfulness. And when my experience is, when pioneers are doing the legwork, you will see some kind of results. You will see a gathering of people. You will see new gifts and talents discovered. So for me, it's the culture change work that unlocks the objectives that we want.
Thank you. And I suppose in one sense that the same criteria is applied to a deanery as well. So I push for Alice to put that in there about what success look like in a pioneering deanery context. Have you got any thoughts on that, just very quickly, Greg?
Again, I think what I would want to see, if we're doing pioneering, is that one of the things I would think success looks like for a parish church is that your fringe, your margin grows. The people that have some kind of authentic connection with a parish church, you will see that enlarged. One of the first indications that things aren't going well is your margin, your fringe is shrinking. And the other thing I would say is that you'll see all kinds of new gifts being released, and I think you'll see people starting to inhabit their Christian faith wherever they are. I think you could see that across the deanery. I think you'll see diversity too, diversity of offer. We don't have to do all the same things. Actually, Parish Church 1 may have these particular gifts. Parish Church 2 might have a different one, and it's we don't have to do the same things. We just have to be appropriate for our context. There was a question about funding.
Yes.
And yes, at the moment, Pioneering Parishes gets money from what was the old Innovation Fund. And the Innovation Fund gave us money to be able to offer fee-free training. So we didn't have to charge people to receive training. And at the moment, we're also working on another grant application with the People in Partnership stream for a continuation of our funding.
Lovely, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your questions. Greg, thank you for fielding us and leading us this evening. It's been a really interesting evening. I'm sure lots of things taken away from that. Tug always has this recorded for us, and well, as you saw, it was recording, so you can talk to him about how you might get copies of this and access it after this evening. But I want to express our thanks to you, Greg, for leading us this evening. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for very much indeed for coming. It's been nice together, and after what's been a quite, I'm sure, hot and busy day wherever you are, it's been nice to be together quietly this evening and share together and learn so much. Greg, thank you. May we, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps put ourselves on silent and then say together the grace. I think it's best to be done in silence, and it makes much more easy then if we say the grace together. So may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all and for all. Amen. Thank you all very much indeed, everyone. Lovely to see you all this evening, and look forward to seeing you at our next briefing. And Tug will be in touch, telling us the details of the next briefing.